Kurtop here, and these are 100 mysterious archaeological finds that still can't be explained. Ancient Egyptian bread. The bread, estimated to be between 3,369 and 3,406 years old, was found in the tomb of an architect who served Pharaoh Amenhotep III. The bread is an amazing example of how food was preserved thanks to the advanced mummification techniques used by the ancient Egyptians. The Egyptians mummified not only their bodies, but also the food they believed the dead could use in the afterlife. The process involved treating the food with salt, drying it slowly, binding it, and coating it with resin to protect it from deterioration. The loaves show traces of their characteristic texture and shape, confirming their origin and ritual role. The bread was a symbolic and practical preparation for life after death, reflecting the Egyptians' deep belief that they would need everything they had on earth in the afterlife. The find more valuable than gold and silver. Amazing finds are sometimes found in ancient Egyptian tombs, standing on a par with gold and silver. One such example is the work chest, with tools found in the tomb of the carpenter Ankef, located in a necropolis near Asyut in central Egypt. On the box was an inscription dedicated to Anubis, the lord of Kereret, and an indication of the name of Ankef. On the side of the chest was also a list of the tools that should have been contained inside: 6 axes, 6 adzes, 6 chisels, and 6 other tools with copper blades, possibly saws. However, the contents of the box turned out to be different: 7 axes, 7 adzes, 5 chisels, and no saws. The contradiction between the list and the contents is explained by the fact that the entire chest and tools are only models. The box is 18 centimeters long, while the miniature axes are only 15 centimeters long. These are symbolic tools intended for use only in the world of the dead, where Ankef continued to work as a carpenter for his great master, the Pharaoh of Egypt. Much more important than the contents of the chest itself was the inscription on its side, which served as a kind of spell. The find dates from the Middle Kingdom, approximately 1981-1802 BC. The material of the box is limestone wood covered with a layer of lime. This exhibit is now in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, serving as an example of amazing artifacts that testify to the beliefs and customs of the ancient Egyptians. Homo naledi. At the Rising Star Cave in South Africa in 2013, a team led by Lee Berger discovered the remains of more than 15 Homo naledi. This find is the largest collection of one type of ancient people found in Africa. Unexpectedly, another 133 Homo naledi specimens were found in the adjacent Lasidi room, belonging to at least 3 individuals, 2 adults and 1 child. And this was done in just one expedition. Interestingly, the teeth of Homo naledi differ from the teeth of other Homo species that lived in the same era, which may indicate a different lifestyle and environment. Mummified babies. Remember the famous pharaoh Tutankhamun? His tomb, discovered almost 100 years ago, still provides scientists with the discoveries. In the tomb, along with Tutankhamun, were the mummies of 2 children. There were no DNA identification technologies then, so these findings were kept secret, and the children were nicknamed 317A and 317B. In modern times, DNA analysis has shown that these 2 girls, who did not live to see their birth, were most likely the daughters of Tutankhamun. One of them lived for about 4 months, and the second was almost full term. The researchers think that the girls were some kind of protectors of their father in the other world. After all, the ancient Egyptians believed in life after death and took a lot of things with them to the tomb for protection on a journey to the afterlife. So the story of Tutankhamun and his daughters is another amazing chapter in the book of ancient Egypt. Panda in the tomb. The great Chinese Emperor Wen, who lived 2,200 years ago, passed away. And here's what's interesting. Near his last refuge, archaeologists discovered the remains of a giant panda and a tapir. Until that moment, scientists did not even suspect that tapirs could live in China during the reign of the emperor. And many other animals were found near the tomb, from mighty tigers to peacocks and golden-nosed monkeys. Many of them, unfortunately, are now endangered. Oldest working compass. Archaeologists from the Estonian Maritime Museum have revealed details of recent finds at the excavation site of a medieval merchant ship in Tallinn. The ship, discovered a year ago, is perfectly preserved and reveals the secrets of the past. A particularly valuable find was one of the oldest magnetic compasses in Europe with a dry card, which is unique since the sensitive elements of compasses are usually in liquid. Also found on board were antique tools, worn leather shoes, a wooden spoon, and the remains of 2 ship rats, which were surprisingly well preserved. The remains of the ship were found near the Estonian Harjapea River. At first, it was assumed that these were the remains of a cog, the main Hanseatic merchant ship, but the presence of a second mast indicates a possible transitional type between the cog and the hulk. Communion set. A research project by the National Archaeological Institute made a rare find near Lake Tisa, a silver communion set and a hoard of 70 silver coins. These artifacts were discovered at the site of the ruins of a Benedictine abbey discovered in 2023. The silver set, consisting of a bowl and wafer stand, dates from the 14th century and was probably part of a burial. In addition, a treasure of 70 silver coins dating from the 13th and 14th centuries was found by volunteers during excavations. These finds indicate the rich history of the region and its importance in the Middle Ages. The Archaeometric Laboratory continues work on the analysis and restoration of these valuable finds. Artifacts dating from prehistoric times to the present day will provide insight into the history of the region and its role in Hungarian history. Lost City of Gold. Egyptologists expected to find the tomb of the famous pharaoh Tutankhamun, but instead they discovered something incredible, an entire city lost in the sands of time. Unexpectedly for themselves, they unearthed the ancient capital founded by Tutankhamun's grandfather, Pharaoh Amenhotep III. The city was built of silt bricks and was a complex labyrinth. Clay wine jugs found in the city had hieroglyphs that told the story of its founder. It was Pharaoh Amenhotep III. In addition to bricks with the mark of the pharaoh, they also found amulets and even goldfish. Mystery of the Etruscan Tomb. A new discovery awaits us in Italy. In its central part, in the city of Volci, scientists discovered a unique Etruscan tomb of the 6th century BC, which remained untouched for a long time. Many ceramic vessels and a dish with a brazier were found in this tomb. During the excavations, scientists found 2 heavy stone slabs that covered the tomb. Behind them was a room carved into the rock where they found about 30 ceramic vessels in excellent condition. Also found in the tomb was a bronze brazier with coals and skewers, on which pieces of meat remained. It is likely that a woman was buried here as no weapons were found, but a spindle was found. The remains of the woman were burned and placed in a special pot, which the Etruscans used to store the ashes. The city of Volci was a thriving center of trade and crafts until it was destroyed by Rome in 280 BC. The city fell into decay and then was abandoned. Many tombs were plundered by marauders in search of precious items. Therefore, finding an untouched tomb is a real rarity. Unidentified head. Heads from Leidenburg is a set of clay heads discovered in South Africa. They are dated 500 AD and are the oldest known examples of Iron Age art south of the equator. In 1957, as a 10-year-old boy, Ludwig von Basing found these heads on his father's farm. A total of 7 heads were found. 2 of them are large enough to put on a child's head, the other 5 are half the size. They are all different, but each has something in common. For example, clay neck rings, which perhaps symbolized prosperity. Perhaps they were worn as masks during rituals, or they were attached to something during ceremonies. 1,600-year-old women's sandals. Archaeologists in Turkey have discovered an amazing find: women's sandals and a wooden comb which are approximately 1,600 years old. It is reported that on the sole of the sandals there is an inscription in Greek: "Use these, ladies, wear them for beauty and happiness." Artifacts were found on the territory of the ancient port of Theodosius, founded on the coast of the Sea of Marmara at the end of the 4th century AD. During Byzantine times, the port was considered one of the important harbors of Constantinople. Today, Theodosius is located in one of the districts of Istanbul, where archaeological excavations are carried out. Scientists believe that the sandals and the comb were kept in good condition due to the lack of oxygen in the soil, since the ancient port was covered with a thick layer of sand. This unique find allows you to learn more about the life of people in those days and about the fashion that was popular among women. Ancient chariots in China. A long time ago in China, archaeologists found an amazing treasure: 5 ancient chariots with horses and 7 graves with people under them. It was a burial place around the 1st millennium BC at the end of the Bronze Age. Horses were very important animals for the people of that time, and they used them to move quickly and make connections with other cultures. All horses were adult males, between 9 and 12 years old, and were used in chariots as draft animals. Perhaps they were trained for chariot riding from a young age. When horses were in their prime, they were buried with dead people as a ritual. This amazing find helps us learn more about ancient cultures and their attitude towards horses and chariots. But not only did archaeologists did this, they also found evidence that horses were used in funerary rituals with or without chariots, which became especially important during the Zhou era, 11 to 3 RD centuries BC. During excavations at the Shijia archaeological site in Gansu province, scientists found a pit with chariots and horses. They dated this object to the 7th to 6th century BC. Mummy with golden tongue. Exciting excavations in the northern part of Egypt have led to an amazing find. Archaeologists have discovered a mummy with a golden tongue. The unearthed treasure supposedly exists for about 2,000 years. Excavations took place in the ancient temple of Taposiris Magna, not far from Alexandria, where archaeologists found 16 burials. However, they were not in the best condition. There were even 2 mummies wrapped in a gilded layer that appears to be made from layers of plastered papyrus or linen. One of the mummies had a crown adorned with a cobra and horns. And then we come across an amazing detail: the golden tongue. The thing is that in ancient times, the Egyptians believed that after death, their soul would meet with the god of the underworld, Osiris. The golden tongue was supposed to help the deceased communicate with him. Now, in the Kavaisna necropolis, where excavations are ongoing, hundreds of ancient burials can be found that date back to different historical periods. In other burials, even pieces of gold items in the form of insects and lotuses were found, which were symbols of prosperity and wealth. Vampires in Poland. The remains of a 17th century child have been found at an archaeological site in Poland with a lock on his leg. The researchers think that the locals were afraid that this child might come to life like a vampire. In the Middle Ages in Europe, many believed in vampires and used various methods to keep the dead in the grave. Recently, archaeologists, including Dariusz Polinsky of the Nicolaus Copernicus University, discovered an unusual burial near Dąbrowa Chelmińska in Poland. It was a woman with a lock on her leg and a sickle around her neck, and here is a new discovery: vampire. The child was only 5 or 7 years old when he passed away. He was buried face down, as if his activities were feared even in death. In the Middle Ages, such burials were made so that the deceased bite the ground and did not threaten people. And nearby they found a cluster of skeletons of other children and a fragment of a jaw with a green tint. Most likely, a copper object was placed in the mouth of the deceased, hence this color. Egyptian sarcophagus and the Simpsons. Archaeologists have discovered something unique in an Egyptian tomb: a 3,500-year-old sarcophagus depicting Marge Simpson from the popular modern animated series. The lid of the sarcophagus depicts a yellow-skinned woman wearing a green dress and a blue crown, reminiscent of Marge's famous hairstyle. But in fact, the sarcophagus belongs to the New Kingdom and depicts the goddess Nut. The tomb belonged to a 16-year-old girl whose parents probably did not have much money. However, they tried to do everything possible for a dignified burial of their daughter. As for such a coincidence, there are 2 options. Either the Egyptians predicted The Simpsons, or the creator of the series, Matt Groening, has secret knowledge about ancient cultures. Also, amulets, jewelry, and stone and wooden sarcophagi were found in the tomb. New Kingdom sarcophagi were often decorated with carvings and paintings depicting the dead, deities, and scenes from the Book of the Dead. What do you think? Why was the coincidence so realistic? Write your opinion in the comments. How Catholics tried the dead. Once a strange and terrible event happened in the history of the Catholic Church. Pope Stephen VI decided to hold a trial against his predecessor, Pope Formosus. But there was one problem. Formosus had already died and been buried for a year. Incredible. But Stephen VI nevertheless decided on this. He ordered Formosus' body to be taken from the grave, dressed in papal robes, and placed on a throne in one of the most famous churches in Rome. And then began the trial, which became known as the Cadaver Synod, or Trial of the Dead. Since Formosus naturally could not speak and defend himself, a man sat behind him who pretended to be his voice. As a result, the dead pope was accused of all sins and punished. They cut off the fingers on his right hand, dragged his body on a horse across Rome, and threw it into the river. I want to remind you that all this happened to an already dead person. But Pope Stephen VI could not long rejoice at such an outcome. People were outraged by such a terrible action, and soon a rebellion began. Stephen was sent to prison where he was eventually killed. Subsequently, another pope, John IX, forbade judging the dead so that this would never happen again. And the body of Formosa was found by the monks, and he was buried again, already with due respect, in St. Peter's Cathedral. So even the most important people in history can sometimes do terrible and strange things. Write your opinion in the comments. Don't you think that there are too many terrible scandals associated with the Catholic Church in their entire history? And what could be the reason for this? Tomb of the Magician. In Saqqara, the necropolis of ancient Memphis, archaeologists have discovered the tomb of the royal physician Teti Nebfu, who lived about 4,000 years ago. According to the surviving inscriptions on the walls and sarcophagus, it has been established that he served under the pharaoh Pepi II and held many titles: chief physician of the palace, chief dentist, director of medicinal plants, priest and magician of the goddess Selket. Since Selket patronized dangerous creatures with poison, scientists believe that Teti Nebfu knew how to treat poisonous bites. Despite the fact that the tomb was partially looted, its walls have been preserved in excellent condition and are decorated with bright paintings, scenes of offerings, a false door, ritual images. In addition to royal burials, burials of royal officials, including associates and servants of Pepi II, were previously found in Saqqara. Recently, several stone sarcophagi with hieroglyphs dedicated to the gods of Upper and Lower Egypt were also excavated there. According to experts, the splendor of Teti Nebfu's final resting place speaks to the high status of healing and magic at that time. The Egyptians had deep knowledge of anatomy, knew how to treat serious illnesses, and considered words and rituals to be as important as medicines. Valley of the Golden Mummies. The Valley of the Golden Mummies is located 400 kilometers from Cairo in the Bahariya Oasis. Here, archaeologists discovered 22 mummies covered with gold and decorated with gold coins and jugs. All these are gifts for the gods. Historians believe that this is the burial place of a prince who lived in the 6th century BC and his faithful servants who were sent to the next world with him. The uniqueness of this find is that since 1999, 200 mummies have already been found here, and each of them is a real work of art. And the most amazing thing is that archaeologists are not going to stop and suggest that there may be up to 10,000 mummies here. Knossos. The Greek island of Crete is home to some of the greatest archaeological sites from the Bronze Age. This ancient city was a key center of the Minoan civilization, which flourished from around 2000 to 1400 BC and is where most of the events of ancient Greek myths took place. The most famous of these is the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur, which claims that the palace at Knossos contained a labyrinth in which the monstrous Minotaur lived before being defeated by the hero Theseus. Knossos, located near the modern city of Heraklion, is often cited as the oldest city in Europe. Its centerpiece is the palace, built in a complex architectural style that included numerous rooms, ceremonial halls, storage facilities, and even a water supply system. Although the palace bears the name of King Minos, archaeologists believe that it was not exclusively a royal residence, but played an important role as an administrative, economic, and religious center. The Palace of Knossos is striking in its scale and complex layout, which evoked associations with the labyrinth of myths. Impressive frescoes depicting scenes from the life of the Minoans, as well as unique artifacts found during excavations, provide valuable insight into the life and culture of this mysterious civilization. Today, Knossos is an important tourist attraction and a symbol of ancient Crete. Mummy's hand with a coin. A child's mummified hand holding a copper coin is a unique find that has puzzled scientists and opened up new horizons for research of mummification and the use of copper as an antimicrobial agent. Discovered in 2005 in an abandoned cemetery in Nyarlarinka, Hungary, this find has aroused wide interest among specialists. An analysis by a team of researchers found that copper contaminated on the infant's body contributed to soft tissue preservation. This was the first recorded case of copper-induced mummification. Scholars were also interested in the fact that the coin was in circulation in the middle of the 19th century, although the burial took place in a cemetery abandoned many years earlier. Such a find was an example of a unique case of mummification using copper, which may attract the attention of researchers and archaeologists in the future. This discovery provides an opportunity to expand our knowledge of ancient civilizations, their traditions and customs, as well as the use of various materials and methods to preserve the dead. Scientists have to study more cases like this to understand how copper and other materials were used in mummification and what were the beliefs and practices of ancient cultures associated with this process. Sacrifice in Germany. Fertility rites were performed in Germany 4,800 years ago, and today we already know that they sacrificed. In Halberstadt, archaeologists found a well with the skeletons of various animals: bulls, dogs, and hares. This happened a long time ago, at a time when people lived among nature and appreciated it. They wanted the land to be fertile. They loved everything that surrounded them. And most importantly, they believed that if animals were sacrificed, the gods would help them and the harvest would be good. The well belonged to an ancient culture that originated in the lands of modern Poland and then moved to Germany. Scientists think that people dug a well specifically for these rites. First, the bones of 4 bulls were found in the well, and then whole skeletons: a dog, hares, and another bull. This suggests that people already knew how to breed animals. Hares, which were also sacrificed, are considered very prolific. Hares and rabbits can produce offspring several times a year. This once again confirms that the well was used for fertility rites. And next to the well, archaeologists found a stone tomb. Perhaps someone important from this ancient society was buried there. In the Bronze Age, they traded cities. The noisy earthquake in Turkey in 2023 brought not only destruction, but also discovery. In Kahramanmaraş, where everything happened, there is an ancient mound of Tel Achan. There once was the city of Alalak, a real center of the Bronze Age. Alalak was founded in the 2nd millennium BC. It was part of Yamhad, the gigantic empire of that era. Palaces stood there as early as 2000 BC. Immediately, the mysterious Yarim Lim comes across our eyes. Who is he? Brother? Son? This question has plagued scholars for a long time until recent findings point to his fraternal relationship with the ruler of Yamhad. And so after the earthquake, archaeologists discovered a clay tablet. It's got cuneiform on it. It was an agreement on the sale of an entire city. And what is most interesting, the buyer was our Yarim Lim guy. It looks like an old receipt from a store that hasn't been opened yet. For a long time it was thought that cities were donated or exchanged but not sold. This plate changes everything. Ritual mask in Japan. Archaeologists have discovered a unique wooden mask from the 3rd century in the ruins of Nishi-Iwata, Osaka Prefecture, Japan. Researchers believe that the mask was used in ceremonial rituals during agricultural festivals around 1,800 years ago during the Yayoi era. This find is one of 3 wooden masks found from this period. The mask, carved from cedar, measures 30 centimeters high and 18 centimeters wide, with holes for the eyes and mouth and holes in the sides for ties. It was found at a depth of 3 meters next to a wooden bucket for water and a burnt tool that looked like a mattock. These items may have been used in agricultural festivals. During the Yayoi era, the Japanese transitioned to a sedentary agricultural society and used farming techniques brought over from Korea. The mask, according to Kaworu Terasawa, director of the Makimuku Gaku Research Center, may have been purely a festive ritual attribute, as it is too heavy to wear. Terasawa added that the mask may have been a head spirit representing the power of Okimi, the title of ruler of the Yamato Kingdom. Mystical petroglyphs. The distance from Egypt to Australia is 12,500 kilometers. However, as archaeological discoveries show, this distance was easily surmountable for ancient man. The Gosford glyphs are mysterious petroglyphs discovered in a rocky area near the city of Gosford in Australia. These images on the stone amazed researchers with their similarity to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The glyphs depict scenes and symbols that indicate that these images may be indicative of possible contact between ancient Australian tribes and extraterrestrial beings, or even ancient Egyptian travels to Australia. Supporters of the paleo-contact theory claim that these glyphs may be evidence that in the distant past there were interactions between various ancient cultures or even with extraterrestrial civilizations. However, here too skeptics come in and point out many inconsistencies and believe that the glyphs could have been created in the modern era, perhaps as a hoax, or are the work of local aborigines who used symbols similar to Egyptian ones. The question of the origin and authenticity of the Gosford glyphs remains open. At the moment, there is no convincing evidence confirming their antiquity or connection with extraterrestrial civilizations, which makes this find one of the most mysterious archaeological secrets of Australia. Ritual axe 4,500 years old. In China, in the city of Wuxi, archaeologists have discovered an ancient ritual weapon, an engraved axe that is 4,500 years old. The axe belongs to the Liangzhu culture, one of the most developed cultures in China at that time. This culture lived in the Yangtze River Delta, but when the floods occurred, the people of Liangzhu were forced to leave their capital and settlements. This led to their complete extinction around 2300 BC. Scientists have found 329 stone tools, 73 stone and bone arrows, and many other ceramic and jade artifacts. The most interesting is the axe, on which images of tigers, patterns of clouds, and birds are engraved on both sides. The axe was found on a sacrificial platform and shows signs of wear and damage. Scientists believe that the axe was not used in battles, but in rituals and ceremonies to symbolize power. Liu Baoshan, head of the local archaeological institute, said the patterns on the axe were made with a harder stone tool. This is the first tiger engraved axe found in the region. Now we will dive into history even deeper and find out what our ancestors ate more than 100,000 years ago. George Washington canned fruit. Archaeologists have found convincing evidence of the love of the first U.S. President George Washington for canned fruits and berries, especially cherries. This unexpected discovery was made while exploring Washington's country estate. In underground storage facilities, archaeologists found 35 glass jars with canned fruit, of which 29 were completely intact. Even whole pieces of fruit were preserved in the bottles. Experts determined that 12 containers were filled with canned cherries and the rest were probably filled with gooseberries and currants. Surprisingly, some fruits can even be edible after 250 years. This discovery is very impressive. Historical records document George Washington and his wife Martha's love of canned fruit, especially brandy-infused cherries. Martha Washington's Cherry Bounce cocktail recipe was also found. Archaeologists believe that the Washington servants and slaves were engaged in canning fruit. They possessed real skill, thanks to which the fruits have been preserved to this day. The cherry pits found will also be tested, and perhaps they will be used to grow trees that grew during Washington's lifetime. Olduvai Gorge. Tanzania is home to one of the most important paleoanthropological sites on Earth, playing a key role in understanding the evolution of early humans. The site contains extensive evidence of ancient hominin activity dating back more than 2 million years. The numerous sites and tools discovered here have given scientists a unique opportunity to study the development of early human cultures and their social structures. One of the most valuable finds at Olduvai Gorge are the stone tools that allow us to trace the technological progress of ancient hominins. These tools, used for hunting and butchering animals, as well as for processing plants, indicate the beginnings of complex social and economic life. In addition to the tools, archaeologists have found animal remains with clear signs of hunting and processing, indicating that prey was hunted and processed for further use. Mystery of the Benin bronze. An unusual discovery was made by archaeologists in Nigeria. Scientists have discovered that African craftsmen made Benin bronze from German ore. The Benin bronze is a large collection of 3,000 brass figurines found in Nigeria in 1897. British soldiers captured them and took them to Britain. For a long time, scientists thought that the figurines were made from melted-down rings that were used as money in the slave trade. But a recent study showed that most of the figurines are made from ore found in Germany in the Rhineland. African metalworkers made figurines in the 16th and 19th centuries. Scientists analyzed the metal rings that Europeans traded for gold, ivory, and slaves in Africa. The researchers compared these rings and the Benin bronze and found that they were made from the same ore. This discovery has helped scholars better understand the history of the slave trade and learn more about how Europeans influenced African art. Now, the largest collection of Benin bronzes is in the British Museum in London. Nigeria asked to return these works of art back to their homeland. Now let's think together whether European museums will return ancient artifacts back to Africa. You can write your opinion in the comments below the video. Honey in Africa. Honey is humanity's oldest sweetener, and for thousands of years it was the only one. Petroglyphs dating back 8,000 to 4,000 years have been found on various continents, hinting at the importance of bees and their products. Ancient Egyptian reliefs show evidence of beekeeping as early as 2600 BC. However, until recently, there was no direct archaeological evidence of honey collection in sub-Saharan Africa. A study of chemical food residues on pottery shards has changed this idea. Archaeologists from Goethe University, working with chemists from the University of Bristol, have discovered traces of beeswax in 3,500-year-old pottery shards belonging to the Nok culture. This culture, which existed in central Nigeria from 1500 BC to the beginning of the Common Era, is known for its terracotta sculptures, the oldest figurative sculpture in Africa. The researchers wanted to understand whether the Nok people domesticated animals or were hunters. However, in the acidic soil conditions typical of the Nok region, animal bones do not survive. So the scientists turned to the analysis of molecular food residues in the pottery. Plant and animal products leave stable chemical compounds, especially lipids, in the pores of clay vessels. Using gas chromatography, these compounds can be detected after thousands of years. The study revealed not only the remains of wild animals, but also components indicating the presence of honeybees. About a third of the examined pottery shards contained high molecular lipids typical of beeswax. This is the first direct evidence of honey use in Africa. It is not yet possible to determine exactly how honey was used. It is possible that the Nok people separated honey from wax by heating. They may also have used honey for cooking, making mead, or for technical and medicinal purposes. It is possible that the clay vessels served as beehives, as is still practiced by some African peoples. The secret of the Archaeologists. The ancient Greeks took care of their health and were actively involved in sports. Their faithful assistants in this matter were archaeologists, small spherical vessels with a narrow neck. They were inserted into leather pouches that were attached to the wrist to carry them around. Athletes used archaeologists to always have aromatic oils on hand. They rubbed their bodies with these oils before training and competitions and then scraped them off their skin along with the dirt with a special scraper. Oils were also used in the bath. Archaeologists were handy and compact, made from clay and other materials such as faience, bronze, and glass. Women also had their own vessels, alabasters, which served to store aromatic oils and liquids. Unlike men, women preferred more ingenious forms, such as animals or sculpted heads that could stand upright on a flat surface. Large-scale horse burials. French archaeologists recently made a surprising discovery in Villiers-sur-Indre, discovering 9 large burials containing the remains of horses that lived about 2,000 years ago. The burials contain 28 horses, carefully placed on their right sides with their heads facing south. The remains of 2 dogs were found nearby with their heads facing west. These finds date back to the period of the Gallic Wars, approximately between 100 BC and 100 AD, when Julius Caesar was actively engaged in military operations. The burials attracted the attention of archaeologists for their features. The horses, only 1.2 meters tall, were typical of Gallic breeds. The method of their burial was similar to those previously found in other regions of France, indicating a possible ritual or ceremonial nature. Interestingly, all the horses found were adults, which rules out common diseases as the cause of their death. Scientists from France's National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research are analyzing the bones to determine whether the horses died in battle or were part of an elaborate ritual. To solve the mystery, researchers took DNA samples from the bones and surrounding sediments to determine whether the horses were Gallic or used by Roman units. Unique round burials. In December 2023, archaeologists from the Museum of Cultural History discovered a unique burial of infants in a quarry near Fredrikstad, Norway. Most of the 41 graves contain cremated remains of infants, a rarity for the period 800–200 BC. Scientists determined the age of those buried by thin fragments of cranial bones characteristic of infants. Each grave was surrounded by stone circles, and the remains were placed in urns or directly under the stones. Interestingly, cooking pits and fire pits were found near the graves, indicating rituals and gatherings associated with burials. The site may have been a meeting place for an ancient community where people mourned the loss of children. Mass graves of children are rare in archaeology. This discovery provides insight into the attitudes of ancient communities towards children, showing that they were an important part of society. And even thousands of years ago, people had great difficulty coping with the loss of their children. Ancient temple at the bottom of the sea. In Italy, off the coast of Pozzuoli on the Phlegrean Peninsula, archaeologists have discovered the ruins of an ancient Nabatean temple at the bottom of the sea. The Nabatean kingdom was an ally of Rome. They ruled vast territories and important trade routes. The ancient city of Pozzuoli, formerly Puteoli, was a center for the export of goods from Campania. The Nabateans settled there, built warehouses, shops, and a wholesale base. Perhaps they also built the sanctuary found today by underwater archaeologists. The temple was dedicated to the god Duzares. Archaeologists have found 2 marble altars from the beginning of the 1st century AD. This discovery was the key to unraveling a long-standing mystery. Scientists knew that foreigners lived in Puteoli and were engaged in trade. The area where they lived was called Vicus Lartidianus, but its exact location was unknown. The found temple allowed archaeologists to determine its location. Underwater exploration also unearthed ancient roads and remains of administrative buildings. Scientists believe that part of the city went underwater thousands of years ago due to volcanic activity. This discovery brought light to the history of this ancient region and its inhabitants. Unraveling the mystery of the mummified bishop. Today we have an unusual story from the 17th century. A small mummified fetus was found between the legs of the prominent Bishop Peter Winstrup. Bishop Winstrup was a prominent figure in the Lutheran Church, and after his death in 1679, he was buried in the crypt of the cathedral in Lund. Scientists have been trying for several years to understand who this baby is, and thanks to DNA analysis, they determined that he is most likely the grandson of a bishop. The boy was not fully developed, and the researchers suggest that his mother had a miscarriage in the 6th month of pregnancy. The bishop and the child share 25% of their genetic material, indicating second-order kinship. After analyzing the baby's DNA and Winstrup's family tree, scientists came to the conclusion that the boy is the son of the bishop's son. The grandson was buried along with his grandfather. This case once again underlines how unusual and fascinating it can be to study the past with the help of archaeology and genetics. After all, this is how we can restore stories that have gone untold for centuries. Homeland of plantation slavery. At the end of the 15th century, the Portuguese began to populate the island of São Tomé, which is located 240 kilometers from Gabon. Wood, clean water, and fertile soil for sugar cane all made the island an ideal place for colonization. But São Tomé was not as harmless as it might seem. Dangerous malaria has turned the island into a real trap. And what did they decide to do, you may ask? Relocate here prisoners, Jews and slaves from Africa. It was they who created the first plantation economy in the tropics, where the entire process, from growing cane to building mills, was built on slave labor. By 1530, this cozy island became the main sugar producer for Europe, even overtaking the famous Madeira. Among the archaeological finds on the island is the Praia Malau Sugar Factory, an old building with unique 16th century architecture. On the first floor, there were living quarters, and on the second, industrial premises where sugar was cooked. However, as in many stories, there were difficulties. Due to humidity, rapidly growing forests, and slave uprisings, sugar production ran into problems. As a result, the Portuguese moved to Brazil, taking with them the foundations of their sugar business. Today, scientists continue to study São Tomé, looking for traces of old factories and slave dwellings in order to learn more about life on the island and preserve its unique cultural heritage. Ancient Mayan football scoreboard. In Mexico, at Chichen Itza on the Yucatan Peninsula, archaeologists have found a stone disc depicting two people playing tlachtli, an ancient game popular in the region. This disc, weighing more than 40 kilograms, was used as a scoreboard to record the results of matches. Tlachtli, Mesoamerican ball game, was common among the peoples of Mesoamerica before the arrival of Columbus. The games were held as ritual events and were sometimes accompanied by sacrifices, but were more often played for entertainment. It is difficult to disagree that archaeologists consider tlachtli to be the ancestor of modern football. Researchers estimate the age of the plate at 1,200 years. Archaeologist Francisco Osorio Leon says such finds are very rare. Iconographic experts have identified two central players, one wearing a feather headdress and the other, his opponent, wearing a serpent turban, an outfit typical of pelota players, another ancient ball game estimated to be 3,000 years old. Underground room under the pyramids. Scientists from Japan and Egypt conducted a study of the giant necropolis in Giza. Their attention was drawn to a plot in the Western Cemetery. Members of the ruling family and high-ranking officials were buried here. The burials were in tombs with flat roofs arranged in a row. There is a free area between them that has not been previously studied. Japanese and Egyptian scientists examined it using ground-penetrating radar and electrical tomography, which made it possible to look deeper without excavation. The scans showed that at a depth of half a meter to 2 meters, there is an L-shaped structure measuring approximately 10 by 10 meters. The authors of the study believe that this is not a natural formation, but an artificial one due to its regular shape and location. Researchers suggest that this structure may be part of a deeper structure. At a depth of 5 to 10 meters, the instruments also recorded an anomaly, indicating the heterogeneity of the rock. This could be another tomb or an artifact chamber. Oldest known species of Homo sapiens. Under the dome of the Moroccan sky in a place called Jebel Irhoud, archaeologists have made an amazing discovery. They have found the oldest remains of Homo sapiens known to us, namely, our direct ancestors. It turns out that these remains and stone tools found nearby date back to between 350,000 and 280,000 years ago. That's a whole 100,000 years older than the oldest specimens of Homo sapiens we've known so far. The eerie secret of the Black Death. A study of an ancient Egyptian mummy has shed light on the early spread of the deadly bubonic plague in North Africa. The 290-year-old remains kept in the Egyptian Museum in Turin have astounded scientists. Traces of the Yersinia pestis bacterium were found in the bones and even in the intestinal contents. It turns out that this disease penetrated the region long before the Black Death epidemic that raged in Europe in the 14th century. Until now, the oldest references to the plague came from Asia, 5,000-year-old finds in Russia and materials from Europe and Asia. But the mummy from Turin has confirmed for the first time that the dangerous pathogen also settled in ancient Egypt. Scientists recalled that fleas were found in the village of Amarna, where the builders of Tutankhamun's tomb worked. They are the main carriers of the infection. There is even a reference in the Ebers Papyrus, over 3,500 years old, to a mysterious bubo filled with pus, suggesting that the plague may have spread from Nile rats to ship passengers, who eventually carried the disease throughout the Mediterranean. The Black Death thus became just a bright chapter in the long history of the plague, and it is now clear that its sinister waves swept across the world much earlier than previously thought, and Africa played a much more significant role in this process. Ruins of a luxury winery. Archaeologists have discovered an ancient 2,000-year-old winery at the Villa Quintilius, located by the road, the famous Via Appia. They believe that it was an imperial winery where guests were not only treated to wine but also entertained. The villa is located near Rome. Previously, it belonged to the wealthy Quintilian family, but then became the imperial property. The villa is known for its beautiful architecture, thermae, and even the arena for chariot races and gladiator fights. In 2017 to 2018, archaeologists discovered traces of a winery near the arena. It was built or expanded during the reign of Emperor Gordian III. The winery had an area for squeezing grapes, vats for settling the wort, and a wine cellar with clay amphoras for storing wine. The winery was very luxurious. The floors and stairs were lined with expensive marble from different countries. Spectacles were staged here for guests who rested in luxurious halls around the courtyard of the winery. Archaeologists believe that this winery complex offered guests not only delicious wine, but also wonderful entertainment in the form of theatrical performances. 10,000-year-old chewing gum. 10,000 years ago in what is now Sweden, a group of teenagers chewed birch tar, similar to children chewing gum today. They could not even imagine that in the future, scientists would analyze their chewing remains and find out many interesting facts about their diet, lifestyle, and even health. 3 pieces of birch pitch used as glue in the Stone Age were found in the 1990s at a site called Huseby Cleve. Microbial DNA analysis of the resin showed high levels of bacteria associated with gum disease, such as Treponema denticola and Streptococcus aeruginosus. The study of these samples showed that the ancient teenagers suffered from caries and periodontal disease and also ate deer, trout, hazelnuts, and processed fox and wolf fur. Scientists have also found traces of birds and other animals, indicating their use as food and the processing of bones into tools. Traces of mistletoe were found in the gums of the specimens, suggesting the plant's possible use in medicine or as a poison for arrowheads. The discovery provides a unique insight into the lives of hunter-gatherers on the west coast of Scandinavia 9,700 years ago, allowing us to learn about their diet and dental problems. And we are only talking about very old chewing gum that children chewed. And thanks to modern technologies, they can already tell so much about the lifestyle of people who lived 12,000 years ago. The mystery of Roman coins on Pirate Island. On a mysterious uninhabited island in the Baltic Sea, archaeologists have found 2 silver coins from the time of the Roman Empire. Scientists are quite puzzled as to how the coins ended up on an island between Sweden and Estonia. Nobody knows exactly how the coins got there. Perhaps this is the case of Scandinavian traders, a shipwreck, or a Roman ship wandering north. The coins found are Roman denarius. One was minted during the time of Emperor Trajan, the other during the time of Antoninus Pius. They were the standard coins in Rome, and their name is preserved in some Latin languages, such as denaro in Italian and dinero in Spanish. Roman coins have always been valuable because of the silver they are made from. The coins may have been brought by Norwegian traders, shipwreck survivors, or by Romans on a ship, although no such records have been found. Gotska Sanden, the sandy island, is one of the most remote in the Baltic Sea. Roman coins have also been found on the larger island of Gotland. In the past, Gotska Sanden served as a pirate haven and a lighthouse island as well as a seal hunting ground. The coin finds corroborate the 19th century lighthouse keepers' stories of finding a Roman coin on the island. Scientists hope to unravel the mystery and reconstruct the history of the island, although it is likely that this mystery will never be fully solved. Ancient marble disc. The underwater world of the Mediterranean Sea hides not only colorful fish, but also the secrets of ancient civilizations. Israeli diver David Shalom made an incredible discovery off Palmacum Beach. He found a 2,400-year-old marble disc at the bottom of the sea. There are only 4 such discs in the whole world. Ancient ships were decorated with such discs, which served not only as decoration but also as protection from the evil eye. These sea amulets looked like eyes, helping sailors navigate the water and warn of possible dangers. This disc has a diameter of 20 centimeters, one side is flat and the other is convex, and most importantly, traces of paint are still preserved on it. Women are not allowed to see this mask. Oxford University's Pitt Rivers Museum has removed from display a wooden mask made by the Igbo people of Nigeria. According to the beliefs of this people, the mask is forbidden to be seen by women, and only men are allowed to use it during ceremonies and rituals. The museum posted a cultural safety warning sign and removed the image of the mask from its website. The Igbo mask has deep cultural significance, symbolizing spiritual strength and protecting the tribe's traditions. It was used exclusively by men, which emphasizes its importance in religious and social rituals. Art critic Ruth Millington noted that denying all women access to an artifact because of one culture's taboo is an extreme measure. She believes that women should have the right to decide for themselves whether they want to see a mask. familiarizing themselves with its cultural characteristics. Beer Quarry Cave. This Roman quarry was once a refuge for smugglers and is now home to rare species of bat. The beer stone quarried here was an important building material in Roman times. 2,000 years of quarrying has created a winding system of caves near the village of Beer, which gives the stone its name. The first Romans to arrive in Devon noticed the limestone cliffs at the mouth of the River Exe. They discovered veins of fine-grained limestone and began quarrying it. When the surface supply was exhausted, the Romans dug deeper into the cliffs, quarrying the stone with picks and wooden wedges. The stone was used to build important public buildings. The stone was transported to the river and shipped out by boat. After the Romans left, the quarries were used by the Saxons. Their quarries had sharp, square corners, as opposed to the rounded Roman ones. Beer stone was easy to work but hardened in the air, becoming stronger. It was cut on site and used to build buildings such as Windsor Castle, London Bridge, and Westminster Abbey. The stone was also used in the construction of Christ Church Cathedral in St. Louis, USA. After the Protestant Reformation, Catholics held secret masses in these caves. In the early 19th century, smugglers, including Jack Rattenbury, used the caves to hide contraband from ships. Mining ceased in the early 20th century when a new site was discovered. These caves are now of particular scientific interest due to the rare bats that inhabit them. Child of Tong. This is the story of a small child from Tong whose skull, found in 1924, was one of the first ancient human fossils in Africa. The uniqueness of the Tong child's skull lies in its structure. For the first time, scientists have seen evidence of vertical bipedal walking in ancient humans. It's all about the opening called the large foramen magnum, through which the spinal cord connects to the brain. In this child, it is located in front of the skull, which is typical for creatures that move on two legs, unlike monkeys, in which it is shifted back. We learned about the age of the Tong child through the study of teeth. The first molars were just beginning to erupt, which indicates that the child was very young. He was just over 3 years old. Scientists suggest that he was attacked by an eagle, which killed him. It's all about the unique marks found at the bottom of the baby's eye sockets. They are very similar to those left by eagle claws and beaks when they attack monkeys. This hypothesis is also pushed by the finds of eggshells found at the site and an unusual set of animal bones, mostly small ones, which often become the prey of modern birds of prey. Ancient conical tombs. In the Chapultepec forest, archaeologists from the National Institute of Archaeology and History of Mexico made a unique discovery. They discovered 10 ancient truncated conical tombs, estimated to be 3,000 years old, dating from the periods from 2500 to 400 BC. These burials, which resemble upside-down cut cones, are often called bottle tombs or bell tombs. Their diameter varies from 1 to 2 meters, with a maximum height of 1.5 meters. In 5 of them, human remains were found, including 4 women and 1 man, placed in a bent position. Interestingly, burials in rectangular boxes were discovered above the tombs, indicating a long history of the village after the classical period. Among the finds, archaeologists also discovered funeral offerings, deer antlers, concave convex bowls, fragments of slate discs, female figurines, as well as schematic figurines called ghosts. This discovery throws light on the ancient burial customs and culture of the peoples who lived in this region more than 3,000 years ago. Lost Golden City. Under a layer of sand that is thousands of years old, scientists have discovered an ancient city in Egypt. Under the guidance of the famous Egyptologist Zahi Hawass, the city was found near Luxor, where the Valley of the Kings is located. This city, known as Aten, is the largest ever discovered in Egypt. It is about 3,000 years old. It was founded during the reign of Amenhotep III and continued to be used under Tutankhamun and Ii. Scientists confidently declare that this is the second most important archaeological discovery after the tomb of Tutankhamun. Jewelry, colored pottery, amulets in the form of scarab beetles, and clay bricks with the seals of Amenhotep III were found here. Several districts have already been discovered at the excavation site, including a bakery with ovens and pottery storage, as well as administrative and residential quarters. Archaeologists are confident that this city will give us a new look at the life of the ancient Egyptians at a time when their empire was at the peak of its prosperity. Scientists hope that further excavations will bring even more amazing finds. Secret tunnels under the Sphinx. A long time ago, photographs showed us mysterious passages penetrating the inside of the Sphinx, a giant statue on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. But official scientists hide these facts, and it is not easy to find a photo with a top view of the Sphinx. Imagine, there are already 6 secret passages. One is on the back of a huge figure, the other is near the ground at the hip, the third is in the middle, the fourth is under the ear, the fifth is right in the center of the head, and the sixth is between the powerful paws. Zahi Hawass, the great curator of antiquities, even personally descended into one of these passages and found a chamber inside. But this is where things get interesting. Now Zahi denies everything. He says that there are no passages in the Sphinx, it's all just cracks from old age. It seems to me that he is starting to cheat. And here's why. The famous sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce spoke of a secret hall between the paws of the Sphinx. Inside this hall is a treasure trove of the history of Atlantis. What if Zahi has been there and wants to keep this discovery for himself? Imagine how great it would be to know the whole history of Atlantis, all its secrets, collected in one place. Do you believe in this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Ancient image of psychoactive mushrooms. The Tassili in Eger cave, located in the southeastern part of Algeria, is a real treasure trove of prehistoric art. This site is known for its rich rock art spanning thousands of years. Particularly noteworthy is a painting created about 9,000 years ago depicting a shaman with psychedelic mushrooms. This unique artifact provides a window into the spiritual and cultural practices of ancient hunter-gatherers. This painting was first documented by French archaeologist Henri Lotte and his team in the 1950s. They were amazed by the brightness and complexity of the images, among which stood out the figure of a shaman with mushrooms of the genus psilocybe, known for their psychoactive properties. The shaman is depicted with an ornate headdress and war paint indicating his ritual role. The shaman's posture and facial expression clearly demonstrate a state of trance. Psychedelic mushrooms played an important role in shamanic rituals, as evidenced by numerous examples from various cultures. In ancient societies, shamans used mushrooms to achieve an altered state of consciousness and communicate with the spirit world. The Tassili cave paintings indicate that similar practices existed in North Africa. The image of a shaman surrounded by mushrooms and other symbols carries a deep meaning. The headdress and coloring emphasize the high status of the shaman in society, and the mushrooms emphasize their sacred role in rituals. The trance state indicates the shaman's journey beyond the physical world, which was an important part of their spiritual practice. The cost of building the Cheops Pyramid. We are used to skyscrapers that grow with the help of metal frames and modern technology, but the Cheops Pyramid, built around 2600 BC, still amazes the imagination. Its height reached 146 meters, and only by the 13th century AD did buildings appear higher. To understand how much it would cost to build such a pyramid today, historians and engineers estimated the costs of stone, transportation, salaries, crane rental, and other details. The amount is impressive, about $5 billion. After all, about 2.5 million cubic meters of limestone will be needed, for which you'll have to go to quarries, and for the interior cladding, thousands of tons of granite from Aswan, located hundreds of kilometers away. Add to this designers, geologists, fuel for transporting blocks and giant cranes. In ancient times, everything was done by hand. It is believed that thousands of free workers worked on the construction site, regularly changing teams that received decent food and housing. They moved multi-ton blocks along ramps using wooden rollers and erected a colossal structure that was surprisingly precise in its fit. Even today, it is impossible to fit a knife blade between some of the stones. According to some experts, the construction took from 20 to 27 years. About 2 tons of meat were needed daily to feed the workers, not counting grain, vegetables, and water. It is noteworthy that the project itself was headed by Hemiun, the pharaoh's nephew, who actually acted as the chief architect. It was he who coordinated the work of tens of thousands of people, which in itself speaks of the impressive organization of labor in ancient Egypt. Today, the pyramids remain not only an object of historical heritage, but also a source of eternal questions about what humanity is capable of in order to realize ambitious goals. For the Egyptians, the Pyramid of Cheops was more than just a building. It was a symbol of the pharaoh's power and the highest engineering achievement of its time, which still inspires us to bold achievements. Australopithecus Deyiremeda. Meet the new relative Lucy on our human family tree. Scientists led by Dr. Johannes Haile Selassie have discovered a new species of human ancestors, 3.5 million years old. These are very ancient and unique finds. After studying the jaws found in the Afar region of Ethiopia, scientists gave them a name, Australopithecus Deyiremeda. It's interesting, but this ancestor lived at the same time as the Lucy we know. The species Lucy or Australopithecus afarensis existed from 2.9 to 3.8 million years ago, and its lifetime overlapped with the new species Australopithecus Deyiremeda. Australopithecus Deyiremeda differs from Lucy in the shape and size of its teeth and jaws, which tells us they ate different foods. Scientists have long argued whether only one species of human ancestors could exist at one time between 3 and 4 million years ago, which then turned into another new species. But this new discovery changes everything. This discovery is essential for our understanding of the ecology of early human ancestors. Now we have new questions. How different human ancestors, living at the same time and geographical area, could use the common area and available resources. Pyramids of Meroe. Everyone knows the huge pyramids of Egypt, but Sudan has the largest collection of these amazing ancient structures. What a twist, huh? Sudan is often associated with civil wars and disease, but this country is a treasure trove for lovers of culture and history. At the top of the list are the Pyramids of Meroe. They were built in Nubia, one of the first civilizations of ancient Africa, and served as a place of eternal rest for the last pharaohs of the ancient city of Meroe. Over 200 pyramids, located on 3 sites, were built as royal graves for 40 kings and queens who ruled the kingdom of Nubia Kush for more than 1,000 years. This period is known as the Meroitic period. Unlike the pyramids of Giza, the pyramids of Meroe are built of granite and sandstone and are characterized by small bases and steep slopes. Many artifacts are found inside the tombs: ceramics, glass, quivers with arrows. Even despite the destruction, the pyramids retain their magic, especially at dawn and dusk. Bas-reliefs depicting scenes from ancient Egyptian mythology indicate a strong cultural influence. Ceramic drainage system. 4,000 years ago, the rains in China were so strong that up to 50 centimeters of water could fall in a month. But the Chinese of that time did not sit idly by. They built an awesome drainage system to fight this water madness. Each house in Pinglientai village had its own mini-ditch, and these grooves were there for a reason. They ensured the safety of every inhabitant from the water element. And in the squares and in public places, giant ditches were laid, which were connected to ceramic pipes. These pipes, like a puzzle, were assembled from separate sections and directed water away from the settlement. And most importantly, these antique pipes are still in great shape. Funeral packages and masks. In Peru, at the archaeological site of Pachacamac near Lima, more than 70 funerary bundles from the Huari culture, dating back to around 200 AD, were found. These finds reveal the secrets of ancient civilization. Pachacamac, rich in pyramids, plazas, and cemeteries, preserves the history of the Huari people. Researchers discovered funeral bundles from 800 and 1100 AD near the temple. They contain unique masks carved from wood and ceramics, which were typical for rituals. Archaeologists also found staffs with images of Huari decorated with shells from Ecuador. These objects are associated with the staff god, important to the spiritual life of the Huari. These discoveries are important for understanding the cultural and religious world of the ancient Andes and their funerary traditions. The oldest liquid wine. Spanish scientists have discovered a glass urn containing cremated remains and a liquid that turns out to be the oldest known wine in an ancient Roman underground mausoleum in Carmona. The age of the find is about 2,000 years. Carmona, located in Andalusia, was a major city in the Roman province of Baetica in the 1st centuries AD. The city preserves the ruins of an amphitheater and necropolis, where archaeological discoveries are still ongoing. In 2019, archaeologists found the entrance to an underground tomb believed to have belonged to a wealthy family. Inside, they found 8 urn niches, 6 of which contained cremated remains. One of the glass urns also contained a gold ring with an image of Janus and a red liquid. Chemical analysis confirmed that this is wine that has changed color due to chemical processes over 2,000 years. The use of wine in Roman funeral rituals is well documented. Wine was added to the urn after cremated remains were placed to aid the deceased in the afterlife. This find is an important evidence of Roman customs and confirmation of the longevity of their traditions. Previously, other interesting artifacts were found in the mausoleum, such as an ancient Roman ungventarium with the remains of a perfusion tomb made from patchouli essential oil. Alien sky blue stones. For billions of years, our planet has attracted many meteorites, and people have always collected their pieces. One of these is sky stone, or heavenly stone, discovered in 1990 by archaeologist Angelo Pittoni in Sierra Leone. Local legends say that these stones were creatures living in the heavens that God turned into stones and cast to earth for their sins. Pittoni sent the stone to laboratories in Rome, Germany, and Tokyo for analysis. The stone was 77% oxygen, 20% carbon and lime with traces of silicon and other materials. The results of the analysis showed that the stone is different from any other stone on Earth and probably arrived here from 2.5 thousand to 17,000 years ago. Metal men. Back in 1719, in the usual mining town of Falun in Sweden, everything went on as usual, until the miners who came on shift stumbled upon a strange find. It was a human body. The young man looked as if he had just died. In general, corpses are a common part of life. They do not surprise anyone. But this dead man seemed to be both flesh and metal. It was as if every millimeter of his body had been treated with something and applied the thinnest layer of metal. This was beyond the power of even a skilled craftsman, because every single hair on his body was covered with metal. The management of the mine did not know what to do with the unusual find. The corpse was exhibited in a local museum, whose visitors took the unusual exhibit as a miracle, believing that the man was metal during his lifetime, almost like a Tin Woodman or Terminator. One day, the grandchildren brought an elderly lady to the museum. She stood in front of the exhibit for a while, clutching her chest because she recognized her fiancé, Mats Israelson, in the find. It's been about 40 years since they last met. The guy was in a hurry to go on a date with the bride, but he never showed up at her place. They searched for Mats for some time. Gradually, the parents calmed down and reconciled. Friends forgot about him. The girl married another guy. Probably on the way, he met criminals who killed him and threw the corpse into the mine. The deceased should have been buried, but the local authorities realized that they could make money on it. There were a huge number of people wishing to visit the museum, and tourists came from neighboring countries. As they say, money has no smell, but the exhibit kinda does. Under the action of air, the metal layer began to thin and evaporate, and the organic matter started simply decomposing. In 1749, the body was buried, but after 10 years, they dug it up again and returned it to its original place. Only in the 30s was he finally buried forever, leaving a wax copy in the museum. But it turns out that the victim of an accidental murder is not the only such case. There were other finds which were a combination of organic matter and metal. In science, this phenomenon is known as pseudomorphism. This is such an effect when one minerals replace others with the preservation of external forms. It is problematic to reproduce it in the laboratory. It is too expensive, time-consuming, and pointless. The case with Mats went down in history precisely because of the scale of the process that engulfed the whole human body, and not the remains of a small animal, insect, or shell. The Soap Lady of Philadelphia. In 1875 in Philadelphia, during work on the improvement of an old cemetery, two strange bodies were discovered. Men and women who did not look like the dead usually look. Instead, their bodies turned into soap people due to the process of saponification. This process occurs when the fatty tissue of the body, under the influence of certain conditions, such as alkaline soil and certain enzymes, turns into a waxy substance that resembles soap. The scientific term for this body condition is adiposiris. After their discovery, the remains became part of museum exhibits. In the 1990s, the man's body was removed from the exhibition for detailed study. X-ray studies showed the presence of pins in the tissues used to fix the burial shroud. Studies also showed that the man was a European who passed away at the age of 40, 50, and was engaged in physical labor. The woman's body was also studied. Pins were also found in it, and blonde curls were preserved on the skull. Her skeleton was strong, indicative of good health, but her teeth were almost completely missing. Currently, the body of a man is in the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, and the body of a woman is in the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. Cases of saponification are rare, but they testify to how unique the processes that occur with the remains of a person after death can be. Due to the large amount of adipose tissue, their bodies were able to remain in good condition for many years. The study of such rare cases as the soap couple allows scientists to better understand the processes that occur in the human body after death, as well as expand our knowledge of the history and culture of different eras. Treasure Cave. Archaeologists from the National Institute of Anthropology and History of Mexico discovered ancient hunting tools in the Cueva del Tesoro cave, located in the state of Querétaro. The cave was named Treasure Cave for the huge number of ancient artifacts. Speleologists exploring the cave discovered a hidden cavity where archaeologists found ancient hunting tools, including an atlatl and wooden darts. The atlatl, an ancient javelin thrower, was used in Mesoamerica and other regions of the world. This device increased the range and accuracy of throwing darts, as well as the speed and destructive power of the spear. In addition to the atlatl, processed logs were found in the cavity, which may have served as multifunctional tools. Preliminary dating of the artifacts indicates that they belong to the 1st century AD, meaning that they were hidden in a niche approximately 1900 years ago. The longest mound in Europe. Archaeologists in eastern Bohemia have found the longest Neolithic mound in Europe, about 5,300 years old. The discovery was made in June during roadwork in the Hradec Kralove area. The mound near the village of Dogalice, about 190 meters long and up to 15 meters wide, belongs to the funnel beaker culture. Although the above-ground structure has been lost due to agricultural activity, archaeologists have excavated its entrance, identified by a preserved pit and ditch. Inside the mound, 2 central burials were found, probably belonging to important persons, and 28 additional graves. These burials will undergo further laboratory analysis for accurate dating. The first central burial included a pit with drains and post holes, as well as a ceramic offering vessel. The second burial had no internal structure, but the body was laid on its left side. Archaeologists also found funerary objects such as pottery fragments, flint arrowheads, and a blade. These finds provide valuable information about the burial practices and cultural traditions of the time. 1,500-year-old relic. Archaeologists from Innsbruck have discovered a rare ivory reliquary in an early Christian church in Irschen, southern Austria. This unique artifact, which is about 1,500 years old, is a box measuring approximately 20 by 30 centimeters, decorated with Christian symbols. A team of archaeologists led by Gerald Grabherr has been excavating the region since 2016. On August 4, 2022, they found the reliquary under the altar in the side chapel of the church. Although the artifact was damaged, researchers were able to identify it as a pyx, a round ivory container richly decorated with Christian motifs. This discovery was the first of its kind in Austria. There are about 40 such chests known throughout the world, and the last one was found about 100 years ago. Most pyx are kept in cathedral treasures or displayed in museums, making this find especially valuable. Ivory lying underground absorbs moisture, becomes soft, and is susceptible to destruction. Conservation of the artifact required careful and lengthy drying to prevent shrinkage and cracks. For 2 years, fragments of the reliquary were preserved for scientific analysis. Researchers are working on a 3D reconstruction of the pyx. This process will provide a deeper understanding of the history and significance of this unique find. Tomb of Philip II of Macedon. Discovered in Vergina in northern Greece in the late 1970s, the tomb of Philip II of Macedon is one of the most significant archaeological finds in the history of ancient Macedonia. Situated near the necropolis of the ancient capital of Macedonia, Agi, the tombs are believed to be the final resting place of Philip II, the king of Macedonia and father of the great conqueror Alexander the Great. The tomb is distinguished by the splendor and wealth of the buried artifacts. Archaeologists found weapons, armor, gold and silver objects, including unique precious ossuaries, vessels for storing cremated remains. One of the ossuaries, decorated with a golden wreath of oak leaves and acorns, contained bones believed to belong to Philip II himself. This discovery not only confirmed ancient descriptions of the greatness of the Macedonian kings, but also provided new information about the cultural and burial rites of the elite of that time. The armor and weapons found near the remains indicate the important role of military affairs in the life of Philip II, who not only strengthened Macedonia but also prepared the ground for the future conquests of his son, Alexander the Great. Oldest Stone Age tools. Stone tools found in Kenya, older than the grandmother of dinosaurs, 3 million years old. But scientists cannot understand who created these masterpieces. These artifacts are the first cooking tools, rather for cutting meat and crushing plants, like ancient knives and blenders. It was a real breakthrough in history. The bones of antelopes and hippos were also found at the same excavations, and with obvious traces of these guns. And imagine our ancestors ate raw meat. Maybe they even made something like the ancient Tartar. These tools are so well made that they can compete with the fangs of a lion. And now the main plot twist. What if the tools were created not by our ancestors, but by other primates? The bones found nearby did not belong to Homo sapiens, but paranthropes, extinct primates. Perhaps the ancient apes were smarter than we thought. Monastery in Sudan, decorated with Christian frescoes. Archaeologists from Poland have discovered a mysterious complex of rooms with Christian frescoes in the medieval monastery of Old Dongola in Africa. This city was the capital of Makuria, one of the famous African states, which became Christian in the 6th century. Scientists studied houses of the 16th, the 19th centuries and accidentally found a church with beautiful frescoes and inscriptions in Greek and Old Nubian. Under one of the houses, they found a secret passage leading to a room with amazing frescoes on the walls. On the walls were depicted the Mother of God Christ, the Archangel Michael, and the Nubian ruler. The peculiarity of this picture is that the ruler bows and kisses the hand of Christ, and the Archangel Michael protects them with his wings. Such a scene has no parallel in Nubian painting. Another unusual fresco is the image of the Mother of God dressed in dark clothes, holding a cross and a book. Christ on the opposite wall also holds a book and gives a blessing. Interest in the history of ancient African civilizations and cultures is growing, and finds such as this one are becoming a kind of key to understanding the past of this continent. Now scientists want to find out for what purposes these mysterious rooms were used and how exactly they were connected with the life of people of that time. Perhaps in the future, archaeologists will be able to discover even more secrets and mysteries associated with this amazing complex in Old Dongola and other African states. It is important to preserve these finds and continue to study history and culture in order to pass on knowledge of ancient civilizations to future generations. That's what our channel is for, to which I recommend subscribing and clicking on the bell so as not to miss a new video. Grave of the Mysterious Surgeon. In Hungary, archaeologists have discovered a tomb of a mysterious man dating back to the 1st century AD, in which a set of high-quality surgical instruments was found. This discovery was made near the town of Jászberény, located in the center of the country, where researchers initially excavated in search of artifacts from the Copper Age. With the help of magnetometric surveys, archaeologists were able to discover a long-abandoned cemetery of the 6th–9th centuries AD and began to excavate several rows of graves. One of the graves turned out to be older than the others and dates back to the 1st century AD. This burial was shallow and contained the remains of a man who died between the ages of 50 and 60. The researchers were surprised by the presence of metal instruments in the grave, which they were able to identify as Roman surgical instruments. The tools were hidden in 2 wooden chests buried at the feet of the deceased. Scientists note that the tools found had a very high-quality workmanship. The set featured tools such as tweezers, scalpels, needles, and even the ancient pliers. They were made of copper alloy, decorated with silver inlay, and had removable, replaceable steel blades. A small stone mortar was also found in the grave. The wear on its surface indicates that it was often used, possibly for making medicines. Such medical kits are extremely rare in the ancient Roman world, and this may be the first such find made on the outskirts of the Roman Empire. Who the buried man was, one can only guess, as well as about the cause of his death. Analysis of the bones revealed no visible signs of injury or disease. In the grave itself, there were no things or objects that could reliably indicate the origin of this person. Therefore, scientists do not know whether this ancient surgeon was a local resident or he came here from afar. However, it is planned to conduct a DNA analysis, which may help to solve this mystery. Archaeologists also note that such a medical kit at that time was extremely expensive. Only a very wealthy person could afford to buy it. The presence of such a set may indicate the high status of the deceased and his professional skills. Perhaps he was one of the best surgeons of his time, and his knowledge and experience were very valuable. Aliens on the walls. Archaeologists working at the Swaga Nature Reserve in Tanzania made the astonishing discovery of 52 previously unknown rock shelters in 2018, many of which contained ancient rock art. However, most of the drawings were lost due to weathering. Of those that have survived, the most interesting were the anthropomorphic figures with unusually large heads. Particularly noteworthy was the shelter, called Amaki 4. On its walls, scientists discovered a well-preserved frieze depicting anthropomorphic creatures with buffalo heads. These drawings may be key to understanding similar figures found elsewhere. Dating the Amaki Panel 4 has proven challenging, but it is believed to be at least several hundred years old. The walls of the shelter are painted red with the exception of 5 white figures. Based on the weathering of the pigment and the lack of depictions of domestic animals, scientists suggest that the drawings may be very ancient and date back to the hunter-gatherer period. Interestingly, similar figures with large heads were found in other rock shelters in the Kondoa region. In all images, the figures have the same placement and direction of their hands, although with some differences in detail. This suggests that such figures played an important role in the culture of the ancient inhabitants of this region. Scientists are turning to the Sandawa culture of the region for answers to these mysterious paintings. Some rock paintings are still used by local people for rituals, which can help in revealing their meanings. Mysterious accessory from the future. Archaeologists have discovered wall carvings depicting objects similar to modern handbags. Some of these images are about 12,000 years old. The earliest were found in Turkey in the ruins of the megalithic temple of Göbekli Tepe, where strange images are engraved on the columns of the ancient temple. Similar motifs have been discovered in Mexico, Iraq, and South America, raising many questions about the possible use of such objects by ancient civilizations. Although the images resemble handbags or clutches, experts believe the ancient ruins are more likely to depict baskets. Some believe that the concept of a handbag may have been invented by ancient civilizations. The first modern bag appeared in 1841 in England, created by Samuel Parkinson. The problem is that the Göbekli Tepe temple was built in 9000 BC, and its builders could hardly have known about such an accessory. Another ancient example of a handbag was found in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs written about 5,000 years ago, where the gods hold a small square object symbolizing prosperity. Archaeologists have indeed found remains of baskets and tool bags used by the ancient Egyptians, but they cannot yet say for sure what is depicted in the hieroglyphs. Similar discoveries were made in Iraq, among the ruins of an Assyrian palace built between 883 and 859 BC, which depicts a genie with wings holding what appears to be a handbag. Historian David Miano believes that these figures, called Apkallu, were minor deities who carried water buckets made from sacred date palms rather than purses. Ancient buckets similar to the engravings were actually found in Iraq. Similar motifs have also been found in Mexico among Toltec ruins, where giant statues hold objects resembling handbags. These statues were created around 750 AD. Curse of the Tomb of the Polish King. I will tell you about one mysterious story related to the Jagiellonian curse. You probably know that Casimir IV Jagiellonian was a very successful king of Poland. He made his dynasty one of the most important in Europe and even won access to the sea. When Casimir died, his wife Elizabeth of Habsburg commissioned a stunning tomb for him. It was a real masterpiece, decorated with coats of arms and biblical scenes. When the queen also died, she was buried next to her husband. In 1973, they decided to open this tomb in order to carry out restoration. However, after work on the tomb, 10 out of 12 people who participated in the restoration died. This caused rumors about the Jagiellonian curse that touching the tomb leads to death. But you know what? Scientists have found an explanation for this. There was a dangerous fungus in the tomb that causes serious diseases. This fungus usually lives on dead bodies, and when people opened the tomb, they inhaled its toxic spores. There is speculation that this fungus also lives on ancient Egyptian mummies. Maybe the workers who opened the tombs of the pharaohs also suffered from the curse of the mummy because of this fungus. But this is only a theory, since there is no direct evidence of a link between the fungus and deaths. As a result, the fungus could become a real curse of the Jagiellons and Egyptian mummies. Although this is not mysticism, it still sounds mysterious and interesting, right? So even today, passing by ancient tombs and mummies, remember this mysterious story and be careful. Pilate's Stone. a very important ancient artifact that confirms the existence of Pontius Pilate, the Roman prefect of Judea, famous for his role in condemning Jesus Christ to crucifixion. This fragment of a limestone block was discovered in 1961 in the ancient Roman theater of Caesarea, Israel, and dates back to the 1st century AD. The inscription on the stone is partially preserved but contains key information, a reference to Pontius Pilate and his title Prefect of Judea. This discovery was significant because until its discovery there was no archaeological evidence directly related to this historical figure. The Pilate stone is believed to be the only modern inscription found dating back to Pilate's reign. Its importance lies in the fact that it confirms not only the existence of Pilate, but also the Roman presence in Judea during this period. Ancient bridge in England. In England, there is an amazing wooden bridge from the Neolithic period. It is almost 6,000 years old. It's a trail called the Sweet Track that cuts through swampy terrain in the Somerset Levels. It is named after Ray Sweet, who discovered it in 1970. The dating accuracy was determined by the dendrochronology method. Sweet Track was created as a shortcut through the swamp. It was actively used for 10 years, but then it was abandoned, possibly due to rising water levels. Items found along the trail include stone axes, arrows, the remains of a dish, parts of bows, bone hooks, and a fragment of a spoon. The road is about 1.8 kilometers long and connected two Neolithic settlements on opposite sides of the swamp. Today, the Sweet Track is considered to be the oldest known road in England. Surprisingly, the manufacturing technology of such wooden bridges has not changed much over the past millennia. This unique find allows you to learn more about the life of people in the Neolithic era and their methods of transportation. Ancient structure in the Black Sea. Off the coast of Abkhazia, scientists, as part of an international underwater archaeological expedition, discovered important archaeological finds. Using special equipment and divers, they explored depths from 1 to 60 meters in the waters of the cities of Gudauda and Sukhum. The most significant find was the discovery of the remains of a medieval structure in Sukhumi Bay at the mouth of the Bezletka River, where the ancient city of Dioskuria was supposedly located. In this area, where an ancient stele had previously been found, archaeologists discovered semicircular masonry, probably a tower with attached walls. It is made of large pebbles. With lime mortar, the masonry contains ceramics. Due to the large amount of sand and silt in the water, it was difficult to photograph the object, so a detailed survey of it is planned for 2024 to 2025. In the waters of the city of Gudauda, archaeologists found many vessels from the ancient and medieval periods, including an amphora at a depth of 50 meters. Ancient inscriptions of the pharaohs in the Nile. Archaeological divers at the bottom of the murky waters of the Nile in Egypt examined algae-covered rock formations. At first glance, the stones seemed unremarkable. However, upon closer examination, scientists discovered several inscriptions associated with the ancient pharaohs. A joint team of Egyptian and French archaeologists decided to explore the ruins in the reservoir in Aswan. Under a layer of algae, they found several carvings that were at least 2,300 years old. The images ranged from drawings of ancient Egyptian pharaohs to hieroglyphs. The photo shows several well-preserved carved figures. The shapes are blurred by water and quite difficult to distinguish. One set of lettering appears to be a row of mannequin heads above two objects that resemble tombstones. These ancient inscriptions are still being studied. Archaeologists believe that these finds will help to better understand how the ancient kings ruled in those distant times. The most ancient bats. Scientists have discovered amazing finds in Wyoming, USA, 2 fossilized skeletons of bats, which are already 52 million years old. This is the first time such old skeletons have been discovered, and they belong to a previously unknown species of bat. These small creatures were slightly smaller than their modern relatives and could easily fit in the palm of a person. Scientists compared the fossils with other species and determined that they belonged to a new species, which was named Icaronitterus gunnelli. Scientific research is ongoing, and scientists believe that these bats evolved independently from other species that lived during the Eocene era. They are studying the diversity of ancient bats to figure out their evolutionary adaptations and find clues as to who might have been their common ancestor. So guys, this amazing discovery of paleontologists opens up new horizons for studying the past of of our planet and allows us to understand how the world has changed over millions of years. Perhaps this knowledge will help us better understand and preserve nature and animals on Earth in the future. The first images of the inhabitants of the legendary Tartessos. Archaeologists from Spain are exploring the ancient town of Casas de Turunuelo and have found unique stone busts of the ancient Iberian civilization of Tartessos. These are the first depictions of the Tartessians seen by the modern world. Tartessus was an ancient city in southern Spain. The Tartessians were engaged in trade and mining of metals. This civilization is considered one of the oldest in Western Europe. Tartessian culture was a mixture of local Spanish and Phoenician traditions. The people of Tartessus were skilled metallurgists and knew how to work with metals. The newly found stone busts have beautiful faces, ornaments, and hairstyles reminiscent of ancient sculptures from the Middle East and Asia. We know very little about the Tartessians, and their history is full of secrets. Their city of Tartessus was on the Guadalquivir River in Spain. The Greek historian Ephor described Tartessos as a flourishing civilization engaged in the production and trade of metals. Archaeologists do not know for sure who the Tartessians were, an indigenous population with Eastern influence or a Phoenician colony. Scientists think that the busts found depict the gods of the Tartessians, although it was previously believed that their religion did not use images of gods. The sculptures were found on the site of an ancient temple. Perhaps they were part of a stone fresco with deities and a Tartessian warrior. Cobblestones for thousands of dollars. On the banks of the Yangtze lies the small village of Hejiaba in Sichuan Province, China. There is no oil or fertile land here, but there is something more valuable. Beautiful river cobblestones. These stones bring millions of dollars to the villagers every year. In Hejiaba, every resident from a young age learns to distinguish valuable stones from ordinary ones. The work is not easy. It is mainly done by strong men, as large cobblestones are valued. They sell about $3 million worth of stones a year. During the dry season, the river recedes, revealing a 10-kilometer-long beach where rocks accumulate. The uniqueness of local cobblestones lies in their patterns and veining. Some resemble paintings or geometric patterns. The village has both skilled stone appraisers and those who hope to get lucky by collecting anything unusual. Even resellers are present, buying up lucky finds from less experienced residents. Notable among the finds was the Hard Road of Shoe stone, which sold for $15,400. Hejiab's success has encouraged neighboring villages to also search for stones, but locals are confident in the uniqueness of their cobblestones. The village's popularity among tourists and Chinese people wanting to buy stones is growing. For local residents, stones have become a part of life. Every house has a decoration made from especially beautiful cobblestones found on the river. This has become part of a local tradition, surprising those who are used to see as to other home decorations. According to local legend, it all started many years ago when a passing couple saw a beautiful stone in a peasant's house and wanted to buy it. Thus began the era of trade in Hejiaba's unique stones. Mysterious Nubian stone tablets. In the necropolis of Sedanga in northern Sudan, a huge collection of inscriptions in one of the oldest written languages of Africa, Meroitic, was discovered. This sandy area was once part of ancient Nubia, famous for its gold mines. Nubia was home to some of Africa's earliest kingdoms, and some of them even ruled Egypt as pharaohs. Archaeologists believe that Sedanga was a key site for trade routes leading directly to Egypt through desert roads. Most surprisingly, archaeologists have discovered the largest collection of texts in the Meroitic language. These inscriptions are commemorative and most likely dedicated to death. Many artifacts at Sedang were dedicated to high-ranking women. After all, in Nubia, a matriarchal society following the family lineage through the female line was very important. The continent continues to amaze with new discoveries. It's scary to imagine what else awaits us ahead. I hope Africa is still full of such mysteries, like in this video about the finds that forced scientists to rewrite history. See you on Kurtop.